Swimrun just felt amazing, right? It is probably the most visceral, simplistic kind of sport you get. It's like it's human locomotion over land, right, through beautiful trails. Then you hit the coastline and you keep going, right? And it's just you, your shoes and your suit.
Welcome to the Low Tide Boyz, a Swimrun podcast. I am Chip.
And I'm Chris, and this is episode 23 of the show. With us this week, we have Asher Clark, co-founder and chief designer at Vivobarefoot,
The minimalist barefoot company, which we had a great interview with.
Yeah.
And they were cool enough to be down with us running a contest to give away 2 free pairs of their new Tempest Swimrun shoe.
But before we get to that, I think it's I just want to say that I think we've turned the corner on behalf of the show.
Okay.
Like, we got Asher on. We timed it on purpose to coincide with the release of the Tempest. I mean, this is
It's almost like we knew what we were doing.
Yeah, it's like
Okay.
we're almost a media company.
We're almost semi-pro.
Semi-pro.
We're semi-pro.
Yeah, sure.
So the deal is, and if you're listening to this show or this episode, it is dropping 11th of June. And the
Yes.
contest is started on the 11th of June, and it will go until Wednesday night, the 17th at midnight.
Yes.
So before you turn into a pumpkin,
The contest is starting at 12:01, or for our Europeans, 0001.
0001 a.m. And basically, we will post something on our Instagram account. So if you listen to the podcast but you don't follow on Instagram, you sign up for an account and follow us. We're at the Low Tide Boyz with the Z, and we will post up on there about the contest. You tag your swimrun partner or whoever you want to give the second pair of shoes to, and you have to like the Low Tide Boyz account and the Vivobarefoot account. We'll put all the details in the post, but the contest will run for a week, and you can have a chance at scoring some of these pretty cool Tempest.
This is a prize package worth $440 because the shoes, US dollars, are $220. So they're super cool. You'll hear in the interview just how super cool they are. And I think people would be super stoked if they won them. So you should definitely pay attention. Now, one note, if you haven't gone to our Instagram page, make sure you go to the Low Tide Boyz with a Z, because there is a Low Tide Boyz out of South Carolina. I think that's like a male review. If you don't know what that is, that's like a Chippendale dance troupe, male dance troupe.
Maybe that's our next collab.
Maybe not. But yeah, just make sure. I mean, if there aren't any memes on there, it's not us.
Yeah, there should be a lot of heavy swimrun content on there. But let's get our shout out of the way here as well. We'd like to thank Helene from Sweden. She's been giving us great feedback about the episodes, what she is enjoying hearing, and thank you so kindly. We just love to hear that stuff. And thank you for your continued listenership. And yeah, really appreciate you, Helene from Sweden.
Yes.
On to training.
So a couple newsworthy. Our pool looks like it's going to be opening next week.
Our pool. The pool that we frequent.
Yes.
That Chris actually plunked down $200 US dollars for a season pass.
the week before everything shut down.
So I assume that they will extend that, but it's a 50-meter outdoor pool. We're so looking forward to it.
I need it.
We need it. Chris and I went to Aquatic Park in the Bay Area in San Francisco and did some open water swimming this weekend.
Or just swimming.
And we wore full-sleeved suits and everything. And we swam for like 30 minutes. And about after 10, my shoulders were screaming.
Yeah, it's funny, you know. It just takes a lot of work, especially. I mean, speaking for myself, I know that I need to have a lot of swim volume to just keep my stroke and keep the feel for the water. So, not being able to swim for 3 months, that was definitely a big bummer. But
yeah, and I will say everyone is in the same boat, and it's going to be difficult for everyone. even if you swam for 20 years collegiately, or you know what I mean, 20 years including collegiate, 3 months off from something is a lot to take. Yeah, it might come back like riding a bike, but there's still some work to do.
Yeah.
And then we even did a post-swim run. Swim, run, 2 words.
Not one word.
Not one word, and that was fun. We haven't really been working out.
No, we've been pretty
for,
socially distant. Even on the run, we try to stay socially distant. And I don't know, where we were in San Francisco, it seemed like they didn't even know that COVID was a thing because it was kind of on us to wear masks because no one else was wearing them, which is a little annoying.
It's kind of the standard protocol is have a mask at least with you, so if you're going in close contact with somebody, you can put that on. But that was a coin flip if that was going to happen. And then we celebrated properly with some donuts.
We did
some post-swim run donuts
from Dynamo Donuts.
The best. Which one was your favorite donut that you got? They have like these artisan ones. Yeah. It's not like Voodoo. It doesn't have like cereal or a big slab of bacon on it or something. Right. They're more artisanal.
So, yes. So full disclosure, I feel like I have to do full disclosure. Oh, sure. I'm about to go off on this. So Dynamo Donuts was a client of mine.
They're still good donuts.
But so I did some biz dev stuff for them. But anyway, Dynamo Donuts, which is a San Francisco donut company, they're really one of the original gourmet donuts. The person who started it, this lady Sarah, who's awesome, she actually invented putting bacon on a donut.
Wow.
Full stop. Yeah, so she was the first person to do that. So,
and it shows. I mean, the donuts were amazing.
Donuts are great.
Lemon poppy seed I liked, and the blueberry lavender.
Blueberry lavender was really good. Yeah.
And in order to not eat 4 or 5 myself, I actually cut them into quarters so that my wife can have a piece, my daughter can have one, and I can have one, and someone can have a little bonus of what they like. So
that's a good way to do it. But yeah, if you're in San Francisco, check out Dynamo Donuts. They're awesome.
Yeah, and their little location's really cool there on Marina Green.
Well, I guess we definitely need to mention the other thing
that we've been doing.
No big deal, but we have just started a column in Triathlete Magainze about Swimrun, obviously, I guess. The first column is out. You can just go to our website, lowtideboyz.com. It's right there on the homepage. You can check it out. If you can give it a like, that helps us prove that this wasn't a really bad decision on their part.
Or star power.
So we're going to try to answer a lot of questions and just kind of share our vibe for the sport in another medium.
Yeah. And so I guess the primary readers of this would be triathletes. So any former triathletes or current triathletes or potentially even swim runners or trail runners could all be reading this magazine. But really awesome. And I'm going to put this in the column of things I never expected to happen in my life. New York Times, being on a magazine, things like that. So it's just so cool. And I don't know, I guess we have to thank everybody for making it all
It's been an interesting 6 months, that's for sure. But however much that's been really interesting, I think this week's episode is also really interesting. How was that for a transition?
That was pretty good. Smooth, no herky jerky.
Yeah. So you have Asher Clark, really cool guy. He's obviously been interviewed a ton of times because
very polished gentleman.
He made us look good because he was such a good interviewer.
Yeah.
Interviewee, excuse me. So yeah, we think you'll enjoy the show. There's a lot of content about how Vivobarefoot started, their commitment to sustainability, the
partnership
Tempest,
with Otalo,
how that all started, the origin story of that sponsorship and partnership. It's a really cool story. And yeah, we think you'll enjoy it.
We're almost positive of it.
Yeah.
So don't forget to check out the Low Tide Boyz on Instagram for the contest, giving away 2 Vivobarefoot Tempest Swimrun shoes.
Yep. 2 pair.
2 per. Check it out. With us today is Asher Clark, co-founder of Vivobarefoot, a minimalist running shoe company. Their technology is aimed at offering optimum biomechanics and posture commonly associated with walking and running barefoot. It's been described as close to going barefoot in the city as you can get. Welcome to the show, Asher.
Good evening to you guys, the Low Tide Boyz. It's a long time coming, so yeah, thank you for being persistent and chasing me down. It's a pleasure to be here.
Yeah, no, we've wanted you guys on the show since we started, partly because of your connection to Swimrun, which we're definitely going to hit. But before we go there, Asher, we'd love to hear a little bit about you, how you co-founded. I mean, how does someone even come up with that idea? It's like, I'm just going to co-found a shoe company that's going to be a thought leader, an actual leader in sustainability and everything else. Like, can you just walk through that process for us?
I mean, look, it's a really long story, but to strip it right back, Vivo actually started before me. It was a childhood friend who, my cousin, who's the CEO of Vivobarefoot, knew. His dad was an Alexander technique teacher, which is all about posture and balance and fundamentally the link to feet. He was really avid tennis player, kept twisting his ankles a lot, and then looked to his shoes as the problem. The first Vivo, in fact, was his Nike tennis shoe, where he cut the bottom of the shoe off with a bread knife and stitched on a little bit of tennis racket cover,
wow.
Effectively, turning it into a shoe without a sole. He was at the Royal College. He made some wacky prototypes. That was around 2004, where both my cousin Galahad was in the shoe business. I was in the shoe business too, working as a designer. And turned up with these wacky shoes, and you could say Vivo started then. Fast forward, a lot of overnight successes never happen overnight. So
right.
Really, Vivo didn't kick off until 2010, which is 7 or 8 years later. Look, it in the end, it just really made sense with me and Galahad. We grew up on the south coast of Devon as kids, where we've been coming to for 3 generations, and we'd always take our shoes off here. We surf and swim and play around. So this simple idea that shoes should be made to let your feet do their thing just landed. It's completely unconventional, but when you kind of strip all that away, literally, we suddenly realized that the only way to make shoes and the only way to make sustainable shoes is that they had to respect human movement, and ultimately the foundation of that is foot function. So started in 2010, and I had a design company working for lots of shoe brands, and several years experience, and Galahad had a couple of brands, and we basically folded everything in towards the one idea, which was, if we're going to do this Vivo properly, let's do it. So yeah, it started in 2010. Is the short version of an interesting journey that still continues today, obviously.
Yeah, I mean, that's a pretty cool story with the whole tennis racket and all that stuff.
Yeah, it's pretty amazing that even just it just takes a certain amount, as they'd say in the U.S., cojones to be like, oh, let's just start a brand new shoe company. And I think it's really interesting that you say that it's so unconventional, but as you're describing it, it seems like the most obvious thing in the world. Like, once you say it, it's like, yeah, of course shoes should help mimic natural movement.
Yeah. And really, we live in a world where, we're expecting silver bullets and technology to answer kind of questions, and so the conventional wisdom obviously around shoes is that your feet are weak and you don't move that well, so you need support and you need cushioning and lots of fancy underfoot technology to protect you or to make you run faster, jump higher, all of that kind of stuff. But look, the human body and your feet, we're talking about millions of years of evolution, right? And R&D. Your feet are amazing bits of kit left to their own devices. And yeah, so look, there's no magic kind of secret sauce in Vivo, really. All we're trying to do is make as little shoe as possible, which is kind of a virtuous kind of loop, because the less shoe we make, the better your feet can, unleash their natural potential, if you like, and the less materials we're using, so the lighter the impact on the planet and resources and so on. So the sustainability healthy people, healthy planet kind of piece is interestingly linked.
Yeah, and I actually noticed that Otelo, who you're a sponsor of and a big supporter of, and you guys have a great partnership, very similar sort of talking points kind of being echoed out of both companies, is that kind of connect back with nature and sort of be one with nature. And I think the more time that I know Chris and I spend doing Swimrun or, you know, running on trails or whatever we're doing in nature, it just is really resonating with us, this sort of being more with nature. So I would really love to hear a little bit more about, were you always so sustainable and organic materials and recycled materials focused from, you know, let's say 2010 on, or is this something, a newer initiative that Vivobarefoot has taken on?
No, I mean, I graduated from the London College of Fashion in 2002 or 3 or something. And yeah, my final 2 projects were, you know, sustainability kind of based around kind of, you know, coming up with footwear solutions that would touch on that. So, and Galahad's first kind of shoe endeavor, again, had sustainable, natural credentials, you know, coming from another angle. So look, we've always, although independent originally, we've always kind of, it's chimed with us, if you like. So it's always been a piece and been challenging. I think now it's obviously really relevant, you know, going back to the first question around, or the points you just raised around, you know, like when you start to really get into being in nature, and we'll talk about Swimrun in a minute, which is like probably one of the most visceral kind of nature connected, or whatever you want to say, experiences, right? You're swimming in open water, you're running in beautiful trails, then you naturally kind of start to value it in a different way, right? So I think if you're the type of person that's always spending your time in an urban city and kind of disconnected from nature, the chances of you really valuing and making decisions to protect that are perhaps less than someone that's running around in the forest every day.
Yeah. Totally.
That's a great point.
So I have, but before we talk about Swimrun, which I definitely want to get to, Asher, is on the sustainability side, you know, where we live in San Francisco, there's a lot of companies that are focusing on that. We have Allbirds, we have Method, that, you know, their whole thing is trying to be sustainable. But the CEO of Method, his thing is like, well, first of all, the product has to be superior. Like, sustainability is great, but if the product still has to be the best product it can be. Is that something that you would co-sign on? Like, you still have to make a really great shoe, and if you can make it sustainable, that's awesome. But if it's not a good shoe and sustainable, you're not going to survive.
Yeah, 100%. And look, sustainability is bounded around a lot now. I mean, thankfully, it's selling products, right? So people care about it, which is great. That's the first start. But for sure, function is right up there, and that's why we realised that the foundation of making a sustainable shoe for us is making a shoe that fundamentally respects human movement and ultimately delivers the health proposition to people. Right? If your feet are bent out of shape and your body's bent out of shape and you're not moving, or you're moving wrong, then injury causes immobility, and immobility is the fastest way to the end of life, right? So, So the shoe has to work, has to deliver, that foot function foundations, and then obviously with Vivo means live barefoot. So once you get into wearing no shoes or minimal shoes, then you know, you need the trail shoe, you need the kind of walking boot, you need the everyday shoe, etc. So it needs to be an amazing trail shoe, right? If you slip up on your butt, or you're kind of, or the shoe breaks, or the toggle catches around a tree or whatever, in Swimrun, if it fills with water and it feels like swimming with bags on your feet, then it's a crap shoe and you're not going to wear it, and that's unsustainable in itself, right? So function for us right at the top before you talk about whether it's made out of shades of green and brown, or algae in the outsole or whatever. So yeah, absolutely. And then yeah, it's around. It's a long journey. Frankly, we're kind of nowhere near where we want to be in terms of, if you want to call it sustainability. We say our kind of guiding North Star is regeneration. So sustainable is an interesting word, right? Because you wouldn't say, oh, my how's your marriage? It's sustainable, right? Like the goal should be, as in nature and also in the human body and in our health, should be around kind of regenerating, should be around bettering. So the guiding light is kind of is to regenerate, to do better than just to be less impactful. But we have got a hell of a way to go, and the industry at large does, and we're really investing in that journey.
Yeah, and I think I don't know who to attribute this saying to, but progress, not perfection, is probably, I think, the best viewpoint to look at sustainability and being more green or environmentally friendly. If the goalpost is, if you being environmentally friendly is you're perfect at it, and that you eat a plant-based lifestyle and you only ride your bike to work, like no one can achieve that really. Progress towards that. And obviously, Vivo is leading sort of that progress charge. I would say it's pretty obvious here.
We'd agree with that. Yes, it is. It's a journey. It's a humbling one. There is fundamentally a kind of the old normal of and industry and complicated supply chain, where the majority of shoes, which we can focus on, obviously here we're talking about shoes, are made, you've got to chip away at that bit by bit and introduce new ways of thinking to kind of get simplicity and transparency and genuine kind of sustainability through the line, and ultimately make excellent products that do a job really well and facilitate human and kind of planetary health, right?
Absolutely. I love that.
So let's everything that you're saying, it just seems like now, after listening to you for 10 minutes or so, it seems like such a no-brainer that you would partner with Otelo for a partnership and to get into sort of the swimrun shoe business, I guess. Some of your shoes before had trails, which have different lugs and everything to help on the slippery algae-filled rocks and the real technical trails and everything, but I would let's hear the story about how kind of the original partnership, or whatever you want to call it, with Otelo came about.
Well, again, it's another long story, like all of these kind of overnight things. They're kind of we met someone, he met someone, and blah, and we anyway. But look, you all know the story of the two brothers on the archipelagos that made the drunk bet, which is where Swimrun was born in Sweden.
Yep.
My first swimrun experience was on that island with one of the brothers. And the reason why we ended up there was we started developing our kind of, which still exists today, our Primus Trail collection, where we had a soft ground and a firm ground, and we were working through a guy called Anders with an amazing group of young Swedish trail runners. He was putting together a team at the time, and whilst we were designing and developing these shoes, and we wanted to, back to your earlier point, we wanted to make not just barefoot shoes, we wanted to make the best trail running shoes we could. We went out and ran in them. And this is when I really got into trail running, honestly, because before that, I didn't really do it. But we went out and ran in the mountains with them in Sweden, and with the prototypes and with them and their existing shoes. And over the period of about a year, built what is now the Primus Trail kind of collection. It was an amazing experience, and again, back to your earlier point, the group of people we were with, really have an affinity and a passion for the outdoors and the beautiful landscapes in that part of Sweden, in Åre. So it was really powerful sharing that with them. And then we were introduced through a guy called Anders to the Swimrun guy, which was Michael and Matt are the founders of the World Championships, who you guys know well. And he picked us up in a boat at the end of the archipelagos, and we kind of we motored on up to that first island where one of the brothers still lives. And I went on a swim run kind of adventure it was a quick one. It was only about kind of 10K or something, but it was relatively cold, no suit. And
you get the gist of it. 10K still.
Yeah, 10K.
I put the shoes on, and I was a bit nervous. I'm actually quite used to a little bit of open water swimming. We're actually isolating right now down in South Devon at our kind of family home. Me, Galahad, and 3 other families that are involved in Vivo. We swim in the mornings and stuff like that before it kicks off. But yeah, so I was quite used to it. But we went on this amazing trail run, and I was a little bit in awe of Matt, and he was a lovely guy, and we kind of and his swim run partner at the time, who was then the world champion female. And they had these kind of like funny plastic bottles that they used as flotation and all this kind of kit hanging off them, and it all looked a bit mad. And, we did a bit of swimming, and then, through having dinner with them that night, we just kind of realized that, we really shared something that together around like, the connection of running and human kind of, health and being in nature and all of that good stuff. And we also, Swimrun just felt amazing, right? It is probably the most visceral, simplistic kind of sport you get. It's like, it's human locomotion over land, right? Through beautiful trails. Then you hit the coastline and you keep going, right? And it's just your shoes and your suit. I know you guys get it.
It's amazing.
Right? You get it, right? It's so raw. You're with a partner usually. It's not about spiky elbows. It's not about big fluorescent glasses and expensive bicycles. Yeah. It's just a simple suit and a pair of shoes, and you're off. And that is it made sense from our kind of background, and we got involved with it. We felt like we could also be a first mover in it, where the whole trail running world is kind of dominated by Salomon and all those guys, and that's where it started. Yeah, it was that's where it all began.
And what year was this?
That is, I'm terrible with dates. I would guess that is 2015.
Okay, and from that point to when you released your first Swimrun specific shoe, like how long did that design process take?
Well, that's a good question. I mean, what we realized with the trail, so we had a kind of almost the last generation prototype of the Primus Trail at the time, and the big thing that we naively realized during that development process with these runners, because we weren't really trail runners, honestly, was that a shoe that can deal with water is really important as a great trail shoe, right? Because water is, if you're running in the trail, water is going to get in your shoe. So a waterproof trail shoe is not a trail shoe; it's a dog walking shoe. And so we developed our trail shoes to deal with water really well. So they needed to have a low wet weight, and they had a kind of area in the arch where the water could pump out, and an insole that allowed the water to get away from the foot. So when we went for this first run and sat down for dinner with these prototypes, these guys were like, "Hey, this is a great swim run shoe." Or at least with a few tweaks, it's good. So our first swimrun shoe was basically the Primus Trail, and we put an orange sole on it and it had a black upper. And so the orange sole insight is usually you have a lead swimmer and who breaks the water and spots the land, and the orange sole is like the all the number 2 guy has to follow. So we had the orange sole
for like greater visibility. Yeah.
cool visibility. You guys, I'm sure you're familiar with it, and it became like quite an iconic colorway for us, like the black shoe with the orange sole, and and that was and that really kind of is a great shoe. I still wear it today. We still sell it today. People love it, and
it's still sold out today on Vivobarefoot.com, I think.
Yeah, Vivobarefoot.com. Buy them now. The new normal.
Deliveries may be delayed.
But then we just got really into it. Like the place we come to in Devon, since we got into Swimrun, it's just changed our whole experience in this place, because you usually get around in a little boat or a canoe and you do things in a certain way, right? The tide comes in, the tide comes out, and you're governed by the boat or where you can walk on land. But now we're into Swimrun. We just go anywhere we want all the time, just with a pair of shoes and a wetsuit. So it's exhilarating. But back to the shoes, we started designing and developing the Tempest, which we're going to talk about in a minute, to be the world's best swim run shoe on the planet. Was broadly the brief.
Sounds good.
Like a couple of years ago, and it's about to launch.
Yeah. So tell us about it.
Right. So
just set them up. We'll knock them down. Okay.
Okay. Yeah. Just set them up. The Tempest is a real labor of love. I must say, I can't claim the kind of genesis of this design at all. It's the designer that joined our team called Lee a year and a half ago. Again, I'm terrible with dates. Sorry, Lee, if you're listening. This is his first baby, honestly.
Wow.
The goal of it is simple but challenging. Lightweight, really low wet weight. Like I said before, it has to deal with water really, really well. The grip, both on soft ground and on really hard, wet granite, are usually contradicting kind of performance requirements. It has to be, amazing. And of course, it has to do all of the barefoot things. Wide, so your feet can splay, and for stability, flexible to let your feet do everything they need to do, and ultimately have a kind of thin sole, so you can feel what's going down. So the first thing we did was we were talking with all of the best compound guys, your Vibrams and your Michelins, etc., and we ended up partnering with Michelin.
Mm-hmm. Is that are you normally? I'm not a huge shoe guy like yourself, but usually when you hear like on trail shoes or whatever other companies, they're usually using the Vibrams sole. Yeah. I'm sorry. And so was it a little bit surprising that you went with Michelin, or what was the kind of the thought behind?
Yeah, the thought behind it, I think, was we did some preliminary kind of research, and I think Vibram in general it was more unlikely because they have an association with other barefoot brands, and it sounds a bit like Vivo. But also the first kind of tests we did with Michelin, they had a brand new kind of crazy compound that were really interesting. So we went with them. Now with compounds, it's an interesting one, because usually the better the grip on a hard surface, the softer the grip has to be. If you think about Formula One, you have soft tires for dry kind of hard surfaces, and you have kind of grippy tires, if you like, for wet surfaces. They're two pretty different things. They really helped us create a compound that does both very well, i.e. you're able to have lugs, but they don't break off because it's too soft. But you've also just got bananas amount of, it's not a good word to use.
Yeah, is that the technical term?
It's like the opposite of anti-banana.
You slip on bananas, don't you?
Yeah.
We need to, but yeah, it's got a crazy level of grip. We worked tirelessly with them back and forth to get the optimum kind of lug design for traversing grip, off-road, downhill grip, and then ultimately grip that would work on rocks, and then introduce their compound, which is crazy, and it's expensive too. Like I think it's probably the best performance rubber, or at least it's the most expensive. It's probably made out of like unicorn horns or something like that. But it does the job. So yeah, that's the sole. The upper is a single ply mesh with no lining. Again, really on that wet weight thing. It's got a big thing for us kind of aesthetically was like Swimrun. Swimrun generally looks like a bit of a mishmash of kit. You know, you've got like a swimming wetsuit, and you've got a funky like Salomon shoe, and then you've got people use different flotation devices, and it kind of looks a bit kind of mental, frankly.
It's like a Frankenstein outfit, sort of.
Yeah, it's like a Frankenstein. It's like you just kind of like dived into a car boot sale and kind of come out the other end, and you're in the forest. And so it was also important for us. Like, can we create a product that really kind of that almost that has a unique look and belongs in this amphibious space. Mm-hmm. So it has this cool like generative design that's inspired by brain coral. So it kind of has this kind of like brain-like, brain coral-like design that acts as this KPU protection on what is a really thin mesh across the whole vamp of the shoe. So yeah, it looks like it kind of grew and grew in the ocean a little bit.
Scaly almost. I'm looking at them right now, and I mean it is a very stunning, striking looking shoe, and that Michelin sole it looks like any swim run challenge you could throw at it. It could handle it no problem. It's
exactly.
Beefy.
Yeah,
it's a beast. It's a kind of it's a kind of little amphibious. What's the Greek god that lived in the water? What's his name? Not
Poseidon.
Thor. Poseidon. Yeah, it's like if Poseidon went swim running, he'd probably put these on. But and it's got the sock at the top, which is you have to put a bit more energy in putting it on, but it keeps all the crap out. When you're up on beach or loose ground, you need to keep the stuff out of the thing, out of the shoe. It also needs to allow for really good dorsiflexion, because when you're swimming, you want that kind of you need to aquaplane. So a lot of people put floats between their legs because traditionally they're carrying a big old kind of sodden pair of trail running shoes, right? Mm-hmm. And their feet are flat, so you're dragging quite a lot of stuff through the water with your feet that aren't dorsiflexed. So if you can genuinely flex your feet as if you're not wearing shoes, and you've got less shoe that doesn't fill up with water, i.e. it lets the water right through, then you can plane through the water better. Now, I have to put a caveat on this whole thing, is that frankly, the likelihood is to all the guys listening to this, guys and girls, people, is that these shoes are probably not for you, at least in the race context, because there's no real cushioning or no real support in the common sense of the word. So if your feet aren't ready, then the age-old saying, as we say, you got to walk before you can run. Start taking your shoes off more, wear some lifestyle shoes first, get your feet nice and strong and ready for action, and then start to wear these shoes. Now you can wear them kind of recreationally or for little swim run shoes, but like I said, if you're not used to barefoot and you kind of are a competitive swim run athlete, then you're probably not going to enjoy too much pounding the various terrains for the first time, because you're going to feel it.
Yeah, so don't wear this shoe for the first time at the Atala World Championships.
Exactly.
If you're not used to wearing them.
Yeah.
Well, I think that's really good advice. Do you have a sense of what that transition kind of looks like for people? Like, let's say, like for example, Chipper, I'll use him. He likes the Hokas and sort of maximal cushioning. How long do you think it'd take him to?
No, I'm
6
joking.
months. 3 months, 6 months, never infinity.
Well, look, I mean, we were chatting about, we just had a Zoom yesterday with our kind of health team in Vivo, and we're talking about the next generation of our transition advice. We've got a digital tool online called Barefoot Journey, which you can go and check out.
Cool.
We'll put it in we'll be sure to link it into the show notes so anyone listening can check that.
Yeah, please do. It's pretty simplistic. It's pretty simplistic, yeah. But how long? I mean, how long is the transition, and is really how long is a piece of string or a shoelace, if I can put a pun in here. Because it is different for everyone. It starts with what shape your feet are in, and some people's feet atrophy and change shape. Mainly due to the type of shoes they're wearing through their formative years and into later life. And most Westerners, myself included, until obviously the Vivo thing, we wore shoes that kind of weren't foot shaped and supported arches and didn't let your feet function as they should. What shape your feet are in. We use the kind of simple squat to see the range of movement. Seated postures and modern sedentary living also affects your natural range of movement. So a good deep squat indicates that you've got full ankle mobility in all your three rockers, and feet and ankle rockers, thoracic mobility in your hips and so on. And that also indicates the transition. And then standing is a skill, walking is a skill. And then when you get into running is also a skill that needs a healthy pair of feet underneath it, because you've got all of those extra, all of that extra ground force, right?
Right.
So I know that all sounds really scary, but the simple thing is the transition just starts with taking your shoes off, and wearing less shoe, and walking, standing at your desk. Get rid of your chair. Chairs are the devil unless you've had a long day and then you can just watch a bit of Netflix. But stay out of your chair during the day, and get walking and let gravity do its thing.
So almost to take it full circle, like this would be the perfect ending to this episode, which we're not going to do yet. But you're just becoming one with nature again.
You're reconnecting to yourself and to the planet. There's a cool quote at the end of all of our exploring. We come back to the beginning, which is a good kind of sum up, if you like, of how we got to Vivo as cobblers, and when people find it and get into it. It's a tough thing to get out of. Like, it just makes sense.
So cool. Well, I know Chipper and I, we were talking about this before we went on air, that we really love sort of the whole vibe of Vivo. We love what you guys are all about. So I think it's funny that obviously we'd feel like we'd have an affinity towards it because we love Swimrun, and basically from everything you're saying, it really seems like that's kind of a match made in heaven with Vivobarefoot. Is there anything on the horizon? So the Tempest is coming out. Is there anything else that you guys are doing specific for Swimrun you can tease out for us?
Specifically for Swimrun, it's a good question. We were meant to do our second Vivobarefoot experience, which we did in Bantham last year, where we are now, where we did a swim run. Part of that was a swim run from a place called Salcombe all the way along the cliffs in the ocean and back to Bantham. So we were meant to do that this year. Unfortunately, because of these crazy times, we had to put that on hold. But we're looking now at doing a kind of a low-key kind of version of it. I'm going to plug another product here, if I may. I've just been hanging out a little bit on Zoom with a guy from a company called Above and Below that makes a product called the Ruck Raft, which is a kind of it's effectively like a kind of raft, and a small raft in a dry bag where you can go on long amphibious adventures. So you can kind of like go on a long trail run with a big bag or a hike and then swim across a section and keep going, basically. So we're toying around with the idea about maybe doing a kind of less amount of people, but going on a longer, maybe 24-hour journey with our rock rafts. I just swam with one for the first time actually a couple of days ago. Just swam around the bay for, a couple of K with my ruck raft, and it's a cool bit of kit. So yeah, maybe we might do some kind of collab, some kind of like 24-hour kind of not race but kind of journey with
adventure race or just adventure, I guess.
Yeah, an adventure. Yeah, and I think like that's why Swimrun really is powerful, because look, there is this big competitive aspect to it. But beneath all of that, and part of all of that is the real driver. If you talk of most people that do Swimrun, it's not just about the race and podiuming and how fast you can do it. It's really about the connection, and the adventure, right? The journey of it all, so yeah. I think there's a lot of headroom in Swimrun, and the more we can kind of open it up to people to experience it in smaller races, smaller events, and stuff like that, the better. Because I think it's great.
I don't think that we could say that better ourselves. So, I mean, that's perfect. I'm curious a little bit about you personally. What sort of endurance or physical sort of reconnecting with nature do you like to partake in?
I mean, my major thing that stayed with me since I was a kid is surfing. So that's surfing has always been my kind of my go-to. But with that, over the last kind of 15 years, I've been pretty landlocked. I've lived between London effectively and South China, Dongguan, where we've been making our shoes for the majority of our existence. We've just moved everything to Vietnam, or not everything, the majority. We make shoes in Portugal, Africa, and now Vietnam. So I've been landlocked, just constantly flying back and forth to these two cities, London and Dongguan. And so I'll surf at Christmas mainly. We'll go when it all quietens down. I'll go away for 2 or 3 weeks with the family and to Bali the last 2 Christmases, and various parts of Asia.
Sounds really tough.
But now, actually, a friend of mine just opened. God, we're going to go down a surfing rabbit hole, but I'll blame it on you guys. A friend of mine.
I'm fine with those. I can talk surfing all night.
Just opened an amazing facility in Bristol. I don't know if you know Bristol. It's like a small city south, in between Devon, where I am now, and London, called The Wave, which is the world's kind of best synthesized wave pool.
Yeah, like
they have some of those type of things in the States, like man-made currents, or
it's
man-made
like Kelly
waves.
Slater's surf ranch.
Kelly Slater's surf ranch has got like a singular wave every 2 minutes, and it is an amazing bit of kit, but it's quite elite. The Wave is Wavegarden 2.0 technology, and it creates effectively like a fake ocean, right, where you can have advanced surfers, intermediate surfers, and beginners, like up to 70 people in the water at the same time. It's huge.
Crazy.
It's a huge bit of kit. So yeah, ironically, I'm into surfing. I usually surf down in Devon unless it's Christmas time when everything chills out. This is obviously post-COVID. But now, over the last 2 months, I've been getting my barrels in Bristol on my way down to Devon, which is interesting. So that's my thing, surfing. But Swimrun really has given me another thing, right? So when the waves aren't working, I'm perfectly happy to chuck on a wetsuit and a pair of Tempests and run off, towards a bit of water and do that kind of adventure. Yeah.
Well, Asher, on that note, we really want to thank you so much for being on the show.
Remember, everyone, walk before you can run. If you want to go full circle and unleash your feet's natural potential, it starts with as little shoe as possible and plenty of gravity. So kick away your chair. Gentlemen, it's been an absolute pleasure. Thanks for having me on. And, I hope it doesn't, it's easier to reconnect next time, perhaps at a swim run event in the near future.
Definitely.
Absolutely.
Thanks a lot.
Yeah. Cheers.
Right, take care.
Okay. Cheers. Bye for now. Bye-bye.
Thank you for listening to the Low Tide Boyz, a Swimrun podcast. Make sure to subscribe wherever you listen to your podcast and leave a review on iTunes if you're so inclined.
You can also sign up for a newsletter at lowtideboyz.com. That's boys with a Z. And check out our meme page at The Low Tide Boyz on Instagram. If you have any questions or suggestions for the show, drop us an email at lowtideboyz@gmail.com.
We'd like to thank Writing Easy Records for our show music, and of course our wives for their support and tolerance of our swimrun activities, hobbies, and other bullshit we do.
Finally, you can support our efforts on Patreon. Until next time, get out there and go for a swim.
And then a run.
And then another swim.
Then another run.
And then another swim.
And then run to the finish line. And just keep going until you're done.
Yes, or
until
run
you
to
cross the finish line.
Or run to the car.
Or run to your car.
Somewhere. Just keep running.
Peace.